Hello, and welcome to another episode of Time of Day. I'm Lee Parnell, recording from somewhere in the south of England, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host Mike Robertson, joining us from sunny LA. Mike,
Good morning, Lee.
how sunny
It's
is it in LA
beautiful and
today?
sunny, as always.
Now, how sunny it is
There's never
here?
been a storm of the century here. Don't believe the media's lies.
Yes, the storm wasn't actually that much of a storm. But yeah, we have a storm down here. It's like crisp packets get ruffled, a tree slightly leans. It's very disappointing. And tonight we are joined by our special guest, Kevin, who is part of the recent Team US for the ETC. So, Kevin, how are you? And you're also joining us from sunny LA, are you not?
That's correct. Yeah, I'm in Santa Monica, right by the beach. Hurricane Hillary
Nice.
survivor, like Michael. So yeah, pretty excited though. It's back to being 75 degrees and sunny. So very happy.
75 degrees. That actually sounds like almost tolerable in terms of a habitable sort of like biosphere. 75, that sounds bearable. It's like when you start saying it's 90 in the shade, it starts going, yeesh.
Well, that's that. I as soon as I said 75 degrees, I realized this is an international audience, but I don't know how to like convert.
I think that's around 30 Celsius.
Nah,
It's like it's
our
warm.
system makes a lot more sense anyway, right? Freezes at 30 or whatever. I don't know. See, t-shirt weather. That's all. There we go. Everybody knows that t-shirt weather.
Well, being British, I have to use a bizarre hybrid of both metric and imperial in everyday conversations. So we're not fully metric, not fully imperial. We're kind of this weird quasi area in the middle. How high are you? I'm 6'3". How much do you weigh? I weigh 90 kilos.
That's a lie. You guys weigh stones.
We do weigh stones,
stone
yes.
is.
Yeah, 13 stones. I don't weigh 30, so probably like 15 these days, for Christ. I've been 13 stones for a very long time. Anyway, sorry, getting back on track. So what we're gonna do is as normal. We'll get Kevin to talk about his gaming background, and then we really get Kevin to talk about what happened at the actual ETC for Team USA, a bit of a blow by blow of the games, and sort of how the whole ETC thing works and how it goes down, being a US team in what is essentially named a European tabletop gaming competition. It's like Azerbaijan at Eurovision. No one asks. It just is. It's fine. So, Kevin, can you tell us a bit about your gaming background?
Yeah, happy to. I think it all started, believe it or not, I didn't play any 40K or really any miniature gaming growing up. I think my most difficult game that I played up through college was probably like Parcheesi, to give you an idea of my gaming background. But then a friend of mine in the early 2000s basically said, hey, check out this game. He knew I was a history nut. He goes, you're going to go ape over it. There's like every nation that ever fought in World War II. And of course, it was Flames of War. So I bought a starter set. This was like probably the start of V3, really, when I started to buy into it. This was in San Diego. I eventually moved to Los Angeles, and really through most of V3, the major club that I was a part of, we did thematic tournaments, thematic games, really, and then mega battles. We really didn't care that much about the competitive scene. It wasn't really a focus. So, we did that for a long time, all through V3, through Bulge, through all the different books that they came out with. The lovely Third Armored Spam, or Patton, or whatever, the old Patton. And then V4, obviously, I think probably every community that I've ever heard of had a major split. Ours was no different. We had a lot of loud voices that thought the game was complete garbage now. Nobody would ever play it. It's no longer historical, blah blah. I try to tell these guys, like, if you're looking for a historical game, like, it's not like they fought the battle and I go, you go format anyway. So no matter what we do, we're playing a game here, guys.
Yeah.
But they really, people had their metas that they liked. It was set in the stone, so a lot of people quit. And at that point, a number of us kind of just decided to kind of regroup. We started to play at our local game store every week, so that people would see that there's a Flames of War community, and really from there it grew, and from there to kind of support the game store and the community, we decided to do almost a tournament a month for almost all of E4.
Oh wow, okay, yeah.
So again, just something that people could regularly know. Oh, it's the second Saturday of the month. There's going to be a tournament at Gameology Games or Game Empire, wherever we had it.
Games at my place now.
Games at my place, yeah. Yeah, so that's really it. Ever since getting into Flames of War, my gaming has of course spider webbed into a million side projects. So now I've got World War I, I've got a ton of Napoleonics, American Civil War, the best Civil War. We all know that. That's the only Civil War that matters. Anybody else that games any other Civil Wars, it's like, what's the point? French and Indian War. I guess across the pond, you guys would call it the 7 Years' War, but we all know, again, the important battles took place in the Americas. What else? Again, it spider webs in, and so of course I've got a huge closet of shame, but it's no fantasy miniatures, none of that. Not to say that I wouldn't play it, but I'm just such a history nut that's kind of where my gaming is. And here we are today. I joined ETC, the ETC team. We played, and that's, I guess, why I'm here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I know this isn't the first year you've gone to ETC with Team USA. So how many years have you been on the Team USA team?
This was my third ETC. I joined them, the ETC team, in 2019 in Novi Sad, Serbia, which was quite the adventure. Basically what ended up happening was in the US, just to kind of give some context, in the US we're such a massive country that we have multiple nationals. So we don't have like one GT, we have like four. So there's one on the East Coast, there's one in the Midwest, in the South, there's one in Canada, and then, but it would have been the US if we had won 1812, sorry. But unfortunately, it's their own nationals. And then obviously we have the West Coast Nationals. That's hosted in Las Vegas, and I happen to play the captain of Team America, Tim McClelland. It was mid-war at the time. That's what Novi Sad was. I played an Italian army very well, and luckily I got to play him. I never really knew him. And he's like, hey, do you want to join Team America and go to Serbia? And so, of course, I was like, oh, I need to think about this. I mean, in my head, the first thing that popped in was the movie Hostel. So I was like, what organs are they going to take for me to go? I'm like, yeah, but I've got two of a lot of them, so I should be okay. But I was like, at first I was like, geez, a European vacation to go into a stuffy room and play nerd games for 3 days, that seems insane. Like, what would my friends and family and everyone I respect think of me? But then I'm like, you know what the hell, I'm gonna regret it if I don't do it. Let's do it. And it of course ended up being the most incredible experience ever. You find out people are the same everywhere in the world. It doesn't matter like what culture you are, what background, whatever your story is, people have the same nerdy tendencies as you. Like, there's so few people in the world that care how many rivets are on the side of like a Panzer IV, and you meet 90% of those people at ETC, and they're all so it was a great experience. We had a good time. I did pretty well that ETC playing mid-war Italians. And then we did, I guess last year we went to Belgium, and that was the late war event that the US was fortunate enough to win. And then this last year, of course, which was again back to mid-war. So
okay. So with the ETC, so I mean, obviously myself and Duncan were constantly taking the mick at how much preparation Eddie and Team England were doing, like gaming weekends, nailed down selection, like going through like Eddie's homework, having to go through all the lists as they're being put up and rate how his list would do against him. Does Team USA go for a similar level of preparation, or is it going for their sort of just go over and have fun mentality of some of the other teams?
As much as I would love to say that we have the let's go over and have fun and this is just a Flames of War game, who cares? Let's go and just own face. The preparation is that's the one thing that's kind of insane, right? So just like Eddie and all the other teams, I'm sure you have to look at every list and see how yours squares up against it. But even well before that, it's what you know, and I'm sure we'll talk about it, is like, what's the current meta? What are we expecting to see? And then you got to, you
KVs,
know,
lots of KVs apparently. It's a
yeah,
recurring
I mean,
theme of it.
I added 6 to that total, so I can't really talk too much shit. Unfortunately, I'm sorry. But no, so we, you know, we were I mean, you know, all the time, and really, I don't, you know, Aaron, our coach, Aaron McKenzie Preston, is probably going to hate me for giving out the secret sauce, but it's really not. It's tabletop simulator, right? So we all, you know, we're all spread out across the country, and you know, there's great gamers in all of our local communities, but when you can jump on with some of the best players in the country and play a game without having to purchase any models at any day, you know, it's tabletop simulator. So before you even make a list, we were playing tons of games there, obviously in person when we could. And then when the lists come out, you know, it's a couple games a week, and the more you practice, I was literally getting, you know, so I played Soviets at this ETC, which I think are a juggernaut, but they also have some extreme weaknesses since they're all hit on 2s. And so I was just getting my teeth punched in like on a repeated basis by these guys on tabletop, to the point where I was like ready to crawl into a fetal position and just cry myself to Europe. But in the end,
so you know what it's like every time I play you then. Great, man.
yeah. So yeah, practice makes perfect, unfortunately. You got to get the reps in and learn the strengths and weaknesses of your own army, and then your opponents, of course. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, so I'm guessing. So just talking about, I think not everyone's going to be familiar with how the ETC works, because it is very different to a standard war game convention where you just go put mano a mano. Basically, the team focus is the thing that really sets us apart, and how those. I mean, when I was being told by Mark and Eddie how the actual matchup system works, and it sounds like it's a game in itself, almost a whole meta in the whole what list you put down. So can you just go through a bit about how the list, you know, how when your team's been set? Obviously, the teams go Swiss, so top team versus top team and go down there. But how do you then do your matchups before the game and that kind of thing?
Absolutely, yeah, and you hit on I think one of the most interesting and unique aspects that I hope they expand ETC or other countries do similar events is the team aspect in Flames of War is so awesome. You know, I really enjoy the company of all my teammates, but you better believe at nationals I'm going to wish them nothing but ill will, right? But at ETC you're actually like pulling for your friends, and that team dynamic is so unique and so cool, and it's a great experience. In terms of the pair up process, as you kind of said, most people probably know about it. It's a little bit wacky, but each team is 6 players. And so when, you know, Team America plays, we played Finland in the first round. We played 6 individual games versus each Finnish player. And it's that pairings process where it is a game within a game. Tony Davis does it for us on the American team, and he's very good. It feels like when you watch Tony do the pairings process, it's like watching The Hangover when Alan is at the poker table with all the numbers flying through his head, knowing the exact odds. That's Tony Davis at our pairings process. So you nominate a player, your opponent nominates a player, and you send it over to the other team, and then they basically send back 2 lists with your own list. They send 2 of their own lists, and you get to pick which of the 2 you want to play. And while you're doing that, your opponent is doing it to their own list, right? You had to send 2 lists over to them. And so it goes back and forth a couple rounds where basically you nominate a player, the opposing team nominates 2 lists to potentially play it. And that's how it's done. So because of this pairings process where there's like nominations and back and forth, you know, the ETC meta, while I think it highlights most of the major like Flames of War meta issues that happen in the game, it can get shifted a little bit to the extreme because of that pairings process. You can avoid lists like my list that I brought this year. It was Soviets. I think I had 41 vehicles, and only 3 of them had 89. Everything else was 87 or lower.
Right.
And, you know, I think at an open event where you could face anything, that might not do very well. But in an ETC format where your captain might be able to say, hey, I'm not going to ever give you a medium tank list or a T-34 list to fight, it goes very well.
Yeah, you got a certain amount of specialization that can creep in there. I know certainly one of the things that Soren was just cracking the numbers, and yes, there was a lot of KVs within each team, but the team that did the best was not the team with the most KVs, which sort of mainly because, like I say, like, you can do a certain amount of offsetting with list pairings and that to mitigate the KV mess it is mid-war at the moment.
I mean, the KV is a tough cookie to crack. I was personally, and I think a lot of the guys on the team were personally surprised with the some teams that did well didn't bring a lot of AT-14.
Yeah,
others did, right? But some of these teams that I think everybody knew going in, KVs were going to just be monsters, and I think we expected that there would be 2 Soviet lists per team with like 6 KVs minimum. And so because of that, I think 3 of our lists, we really tried to like pile on the high AT to counter that. So, yeah.
But yeah, so keeping on with the ETC theme, obviously, you're encountering groups of people you never get to play. So what were some of the surprises in like play styles or like metas between what you and I are used to here in North America compared to like what some of the European teams brought?
Yeah, it does seem like there's different metas between the US and Europe generally. Obviously, wide sweeping strokes here, but the US in the US tournament scene, I see a lot of players that are a lot more aggressive with their units, kind of trying to push an objective early. Let's try to win the game in like 2 or 3 turns if possible. That really like attack and get on the objective mindset. And I think other people have kind of hit on this as well. And in Europe, especially this year, I noticed, again, wide sweeping strokes, there was a lot more deliberate maneuver from the European teams. A lot of the Europeans, not everybody, obviously there were some very aggressive players, but at 50,000 feet, it seemed like people kind of secure their objectives, make sure they aren't going to lose the game, use the full 3 hours to use their artillery systems and ground and pound, and then advance. I think one of the things that I don't know if Soren's hit on it yet, or Graham, or any of the guys that are like the true mathematical wizards, but like people were really looking at bypass and why was there so many ties in bypass. And that mission is the new version of, I think, Spearpoint. Is that, or Spearhead, one of those two?
Is it one basically, the corner deployment and the edge deployment for the other guys, and then you got that empty neutral space. Yeah,
and there's the defender has a box in the middle on the long edge, one side or the other.
Right. No, that's it. Yeah, I'm thinking
it. Yep, make you pull out the book. There we go.
So you can tell I think I had this. I don't think it's in this one. I think it's the actual mission pack later.
It's the old. I think it's the old Spearpoint if it's in that one.
Yeah.
But they basically removed the objective from the defender's deployment zone, and now they're both on the short edge. But the attacker has 2 objectives to defend as well.
Yeah.
And so I think from my own personal experience playing it and other people's experience playing it, some of the guys on the US team, we noticed that it's like, okay, attackers in Spearpoint, again, generalization here, really wanted to make sure their own objectives were safe, right? They have reserves, the defender has reserves, but the attacker kind of waited for everything to come on, secure their objective, and then maybe go forward. But that process of waiting and then having to defend your own objectives, I think, led to a lot of ties. In the US, that really doesn't cross a lot of players' minds, I think. The objectives go live on 3, and the defender has delayed reserves. So, and there's an objective so far away that you could just dash vehicles and pretend, if you've got like Stewarts, you could get on it in 2 turns.
Yeah.
It's insane. And we didn't see that a lot.
The best way of defending your objective is being your opponent's half so they can't get to your objective.
That's right. Right. So yeah, I mean, I think that's, again, just what I noticed was a little bit more deliberate play style or defensive. Make sure that the game is in hand before you risk units in a frontal assault.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. So so let's just go for the actual Team USA experience. So your first game you already said was Finland.
Mm-hmm.
So just talk. You want to talk a little bit about your? Let's focus on your bit, your part of the war, as it were. So on you were playing your first game.
Oh boy, now you're asking tough questions. I have to remember things from 2 weeks ago. Uh, all right, now I'm starting to sweat here. So we played Finland. They're a bunch of great guys. I think really Ludwig has been playing forever, but a lot of their guys on the team are just starting to finally get into that tournament scene just in general. And
yeah,
he's really trying to encourage them to join and see how much fun they can have. So I played Martin, and he had a Finnish list with T-26s and Finnish infantry. I played bypass. I ran a crap load of vehicles to the far objective. He got a KV, but luckily I was able to assault infantry and win it before his KV got fully on the objective for contesting.
Nice.
Yeah. So but yeah, they're great guys over there. A lot of fun. I had a lot of fun hanging out with them. And then the second round we played Poland, who did win in the end. I think they had 22 total victories. Great bunch of guys. I played the captain, Michael. He had Romanian motorized infantry, some R2s, a Tiger tank, and a plane, I believe. And we played bypass, but now I was defending because I played maneuver at the event, I should say. So kind of a little bit of attack, a little bit of defending sometimes. Defended and bypass, and again, great player. He had a Tiger tank. It came in reserves on turn 1, I think, and there was a road that ran through the entire table from his zone to my objective, basically. And I only had 3 KV8s on the objective. And again, I have 3 tanks with AT9 and end list of stuff that could potentially hurt his Tiger, which that can't even really hurt his Tiger. But luckily he was so focused on killing models, that he didn't rush to the objective. I don't think I had anything that could have stopped him. But luckily, some reserves came in the right place, and I was able to get a cheeky objective to pull that game out. I brought a T-70 troop, which I don't know if a lot of people in Europe like the T-70s compared to like a Stuart troop. But I had T-70 models. I like the front armor 4 because I thought there might be a lot of L6s, things like that.
Yeah.
They were able to push an objective. I think I got 5 tanks on the objective, and 1 tank was bailed out further back. He had 4 Panzer IVs or 3s, whatever the Romanian T4, right?
T4s,
and he killed all but 1, and then of course the bailed one back there. And he had 2 infantry teams on the objective and a couple of half tracks with infantry in them. But luckily, I passed the last stand. I was able to launch the assault, and he broke off. So again, just sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, I guess.
Yeah. That's what Napoleon said, wasn't it? About you'd rather have lucky generals and good ones sometimes.
That's right. So we got 6 wins off the Finns. We got 4 wins off of Poland. So I think we were at 10 wins at the end of the first day.
Nice.
And so, a lot of the spirits on the team were pretty high, right? 10 wins. I think the next team in line was Northern Ireland with 7, who have a couple, their entire team is really good. But so that night for dinner, let's just say there was a lot of celebration. There was many sangrias being poured and everything. It was, it was fun. We were in a good spot. I think people were riding high. We played Northern Ireland at the start of the 3rd day. I played Scott Miller, the captain, great guy. He brought T-38 company, with 3 Martyrs and a couple, whatever, and a Nimrod company. That's what it was. And again, I told him I felt like he was being a Nimrod for taking the Nimrods, but
Don't let Duncan hear you say
I was
that.
about to say it's Duncan's favorite.
no, you know, platoon of whatever, platoon of two. It's a lot of shots. I get it, but
It says little units of two. Yeah, it always bugs me about it. Just seems like it's gonna fall apart really quickly.
Yeah, right. And there's no armor on, but there are. If you're just looking for as many shots as possible, I could see why people take. Like, it's just not my play style, right?
Sure.
And I think I defended in breakthrough against him, but I did take a Sturmovik in my list. That's one of the things, as an aside, that I was kind of surprised. I looked at the total. One of the examinations I did is I looked at all of the Soviet lists that were brought to ETC, and not that many brought Sturmoviks. Like probably only half, or even I think maybe potentially like a third of lists brought Sturmoviks. I hate planes. I hate planes. All the guys locally will know that I absolutely despise them. They can't take an objective. And, you know, if you're trying to win in 3 turns, 50-50 chance for something to come in, and then you got to roll the range in. What's the point? And you're going to be hopefully in their face. What's the point of taking a plane? But for the Russians, a lot of us felt that, you know, if everybody's going to be taking still be taking Martyrs or Lancias or insert any shitty armored unit here, that they kind of needed to happen, especially since the Russians don't have a lot of good reach out and touch type units. So yeah, the Sturmoviks killed his Martyrs on turn 2 or something. So at that point, I heard that, and it was the air escaping out of them. So
Riddled by 27mm rounds, yes.
Yeah. No, he's a lot of fun, man. I was fortunate that I played 6 really fun people, and you know, could have a good laugh with, and wouldn't take it personally or anything, you know, of course. And then we finished the day with Denmark, which every year that I've gone, we've always played Denmark. We always do dinner with them on Sundays. We love those guys. They're a good group of guys. So as a team, I think we got 4 wins, 2 losses against Northern Ireland, by the way. So we're at 14 points, still really good, in good shape. But then we played Denmark. I played Mort on that team, who I think is running an event for those listening in a month, like in November, and then again in March or something, that they're all like super thematic, like non-competitive, like historical scenario events.
Right.
So, you know, and naturally as an American player, when I heard non-competitive, I gagged a little bit, but you know, but I played him. He had an Italian list. He had a bunch of L6s. He took, I think, Legion to Rome infantry, and then he took 6 Semo longs. I think 6 Semo longs. So he had a bunch of those Semo not Vente 90, or not 90s, the longs.
Which a lot of long 75s.
Long 75s. There we go. Thank you.
Wait, are those the mid-war monster ones or not?
No,
I don't know my Ventes.
The 90 millimeter is the
wild card.
Okay.
You have the standard 75s, and there is a mid-war monster long 75, because technically it's a late. You know, it gets used in the war, but by the Germans post the Italian surrender.
Okay.
Oh wow!
It gets confusing. There's quite a lot of similar things in it. Yes.
Well, bring Mike back. He would be able to tell us.
Mike would definitely
how
tell us,
many were used and at what point of the. Jeez, man!
Don't worry,
bring him back.
I'm stockpiling grievances for his next appearance on the show.
Yeah, how
Mike
will
be back.
Give you that research.
Mike will be back once we get an Italian campaign back for World War II, or Italy in Team Yankee. Mike will be back. Trust me.
So Italy in Team Yankee, or an Italian campaign in World War II. So you guys are going to both be like what, 60 and 70 years old? What is that?
That feels that way after the recent Heat interview, where apparently Italy got a bit of a poor showing. So,
okay,
so Denmark overall. What was the final Team USA score? Oh, sorry, we were still going for it. Yes, you had the long 75s. Is what we got.
Yeah. So we both were maneuver, so it was just basically a roll off. I think I played him and outmaneuvered. Pushing two objectives though, with one side with KV8s and Valentines, the other with KV1s. It's just that's an example of why are these so cheap? This stupid unit, right? Because those 90s or those longs could kill everything except for Valentine's, basically. But when the Valentines are going two different ways, how do you deal with it? So, so yeah, I was able to pull out the win there. I think as a team we only got 2 though, and then they got 1 win, and I think 3 went to time.
Oh wow!
So that was a little bit of a pump
Rough
the brakes. These guys, they're all really good players, and I think they were tied for 3rd, but lost on battle points this year. So Denmark they're getting saucy.
They beat UK, Team England, that's for sure.
Oh, did they? Well,
I think they're just ahead of Team England.
Okay, yeah. Well, no wonder I noticed so much tension on the Rich Hardy podcast when Denmark. No, but yeah, those guys are fun, great guys. Probably one of my greatest games of Flames of War, simply because Mort knew every dumb movie quote that I mentioned. Like, he was able to respond. So like that for alone would have got him a sportsmanship score of like 8 or whatever the maximum is, and +2. So yeah, we kind of, but tying so many games in that format allowed Poland. I don't know who they played, but they played, they got some good wins, and I think they were 1 point higher than us. And then we played Italy on the 3rd day, who we got dinner with at a Lebanese restaurant the previous night. It was delicious. I just told them basically, bring me whatever your favorite meats are. And then when you're done bringing me those meats, bring me additional meats. And it was terrific. I enjoyed the heck out of the meal and the company. I played, he's going to kill me. I think it was Antonio. And if not, he'll call me and yell at me, I'm sure, and tell me that I didn't. But he took a T-34 Soviet company with a bunch of KVs and Valentines and basically stuff that I couldn't kill him, and he couldn't kill a lot of my stuff. And there was nothing we could do. So I think we played for 2.5 hours, and I think we both got 3 points, or I even only maybe got 1 or whatever it was. And we said, okay, let's go get a refreshment. There's no point playing anymore. But it was, he's a fun guy, and the whole team Italy, man. Everybody has heard how well they did as a team. It's really good to see. They're all really good guys. I think they got 3 wins off of us, and 2 ties, and Tony Davis was our only win for Team USA. So again, going in the last round, I think we would have well, in hindsight, I know that we needed to win 5 games.
Right.
So we played Switzerland, who we've played we played last year in the last round. We played them again. Those guys are a lot of fun. Ever since I did the SSF as well, that they hosted in the middle of the pandemic. I don't know. They did like a small ETC format 4-man team event in Switzerland in like 2020, when everybody thought the pandemic was over. But it's like, just kidding, we're here. Here's some pyrons. But so I was silly enough to travel during that. But they earned my respect, admiration, and friendship when they taught me about the idea of raclette, which is the melted cheese, the giant cheese wheel, and then they melt it and they put it on the food. Oh God, like I said, those guys. So they brought chocolates as well. So you have to.
It's a good combination: Swiss cheese and Swiss chocolate. So.
That's right.
For the alcoholic chocolates, is Team Switzerland trying to goose the rounds here?
Right. I kept telling them too, like, look, we have great Swiss cheese as well. Let me introduce you to Kraft. It's a great brand. It's our plastic cheese brand.
Yep.
So they had a good Etienne, their captain, or one of their co-captains, Stefano, I think is the captain now. They're all really good players, and so we ended up. I think we only won 3 games and tied 2 and lost 1. So unfortunately, those 2 ties, I know a couple of them could have gone either way. Just not enough time or not enough luck, whatever it is. That's the roll of the dice. So, I think in the end we finished with 20 points. Like I said, Poland finished with 22.
By margins.
Yeah. And you know what? It's gonna happen, There's only so much you can do. I think Tony did a great pairings process throughout. And you know, I think it was hard for a lot of the guys on the team just because how well we did in the first half. It's like, okay, if we can only just partially replicate that, we've got to, you know, you could smell it. You saw the path to victory. We just needed to stay focused. And like I said, I don't know if it was maybe too much meat at the Lebanese restaurants or too much sangria at the Spanish restaurant, whatever it was, whatever the combination is, we'll have to change it for next year. You know, notice I'm not talking about the strategy or the units taken. It's okay. Well, what did we eat that night? You know, we got to change that up. That's the strategy.
It's that real sort of real sport nutrient sort of that study kind of thing going on.
Right.
You do some more carb loading beforehand. You know, hit the Italian, love the pasta, get that carb loading going. Just to
Right. Yeah. Man, you guys were only eating salad and meat. There was no carbs. What were you thinking? Come on. No, you know, obviously, it's hard for me to say like the competition matters. It's a lot of fun. All of us want to win every single game, and I think we want to win first place for the next 3,000 years, whatever it is, right? But you know, every time I talk about ETC to locals or anybody that'll listen, friends, family, anybody that is stuck in a room with me, it's always the people and the activities and the camaraderie that you make with these people from around the world. I mean, last year, never would have thought it. Igor and I stayed an extra day, or, you know, everybody stays different times, but we stayed an extra day. So on Monday after the tournament last year, we did Waterloo, obviously as big Napoleonic nerds. That was an incredible experience. But Team Serbia heard, hey, these guys are going to Waterloo. We went on a train. We hung out with Team Serbia the entire time, and their guys, like, they know so much more about Napoleonic history and like the foundries that these cannons were. It was like
wow.
You know, the entire team,
tour guides.
Yeah, no, they're great guys. But you know, it's like that sort of story, you know, is kind of what you remember. The games, of course, as well, but it's always the people that you remember the most.
I mean, that does seem, I mean, that's basically what sort of won Eddie over as the whole ETC thing was there. It's less the tournament side. It's definitely more that, like I say, that social aspect in the evenings, going out for dinner with one of the other teams, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Really, I thought Eddie was won over because it always gave him like half an hour worth of talking on the podcast.
Well, content's content. You know, it's content's king. It's that's why we tolerate his sudden turncoat switch to doing the ETC thing. At least get some content.
I forget what it was, but the first time I ever met him, I think, was last year. And I think he was in line at the.
That's his first ETC. Yeah.
Okay, great guy, a lot of fun. First, you know, and I think the first time I ever met him, he was in the line for the bar. I guess that goes to your socialization thing. He can slap me all he wants, and I go, hey, Mike Robinson wants his free dice. You better give him his fucking free dice, man. I'm sorry, bleep that out. Give him his free dice or whatever it was. Something like he was a Patreon of the channel.
I never got those Blitz tokens.
You never got them. Oh no.
Right, Duncan, out. Get this man his tokens.
Yeah.
And this is the thing I said, like offhand, is like a snide remark. I'm like, oh yeah, you know, you see Eddie, tell him I Blitz tokens. This was before I became a proper contributor to the site, where I was just, you know, a jerk on the Discord, you know, just riling up Mike Everest. I must just change there. But he's like, oh no, I'm gonna tell him, like, no, please don't. Hold on, wait, no, hold on. I've regretted saying, opening my stupid mouth.
Fine. But if you pay your month, so you can give us abuse. That's basically that's what that money goes towards. Is that,
yeah.
So I mean, so it sounds like a, you know, second place. You know, you're still, you know, second step in the podium is still definitely worth traveling across the Atlantic for.
Vice champion, if you will.
Vice champion. Yeah.
Right. No, it was again. It's a good outcome. I think there's only so much that you can prepare for. You know, Tony can get matchups that are favorable. But you know, in the end, you're playing some of the best players in the world, and it is a dice game. So there's only, you know, there's so much in your control, and I still learned things that I could do better at the event, you know, for next time. And, you know, so yeah, it's great. And, you know, like, ETC, everybody thinks it's super sweaty, competitive nature, but like I said, Team USA's had a couple good years, but hopefully, if there's one thing I could say is even the people that want to win are there to have fun and hang out and socialize, and it really isn't like going to a whatever your worst nightmare is for tournament play. I guess for Michael it would be a tournament full of Kevin Morrises, but
I already have that. I have to deal with
us.
you. I have to deal with Igor. I have to deal with Frank, Bryce. Like there's all sorts of people who are just way better than me and murder me every time we play.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll see you this Saturday.
I mean, so looking forward, I believe it's going to be a late war for next TTC, from what I heard from the rumors I'm hearing. So do you obviously having done late war last year and then done mid war this year, do you think there's actually I'm just trying to think how to phrase this.
Is there room for Team Yankee?
Team Yankee, that'd be good. No, do you think there's actually a improvement in balance between late war and mid war? Do you think different dynamic points bring mid war to a point where it's actually competing with late war for that kind of like that balance?
Yeah, that's a great question, Lee, and hopefully this podcast is 4 hours long because I can't wait to talk about it. No, dynamic points were probably one of the best things that have happened to the hobby, at least a competitive hobby, and I think it was Graham that kind of started it, right? Kind of, I know he
shot points, yeah,
right. He did his monograd points, which made kind of forced the conversation, I think, right? Which is you got to kind of give him props for that because I really do think dynamic points. Are they perfect? Probably not. It could have gone a little bit farther. I know, it changes, but the point is it's dynamic. So you only have to live with them for a year. And I think a lot of the changes did, for example, on Team Northern Ireland, Keith Gilmore and John Cedarberg. Keith is Northern Irish guy that lives in Minnesota or one of the Midwestern flyover states. They're all the same. And John lives next to him as well. Two masters level players, terrific players. They went and they played Sherman companies or a Lee and a Sherman company. I think in the old version of mid-war, that would have been seen as rightly insane and they would have got committed, right? I mean, I think it's good. The slight increase to L6s, they're still amazing tanks. The Scout tank company or I should say the Fearless version of them, still great tanks. They still serve a terrific purpose, but now you can't take 30 of them. You can only take 16 or whatever it is. Right? So I think mid-war's in a pretty good spot. Like, little tweaks like, okay, how many people brought KV lists? Okay, it's insane. It's an insane vehicle. Maybe we should not make them 7 points. Whatever, but they can do that change now. You look at late war and it's like everybody said late war was more balanced, but I don't want to put my finger and wag it, but look at Berlin, what Berlin has done. And I know, a lot of locals, and then if you look at like Jacob, who won Southern Nationals last weekend, and I think he won Historicon the weekend before, but you look at some of the top performing lists, and it's $1.5 million 15 millimeter cannon Dremels or
drills,
Dremels. Dremels. What am I? Sorry, I'm getting drilled to buy these things. But, so the spam of that is real. Like you run Brigade and you run Clausewitz and you could take like 36 of them, and it cost you like 1.5 points or something stupid.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
Stummels are insanely cheap. You can either get 6 Stummels for 6 points, or you could take the Pack 40 ones for 18. It's just
250 scout troops for 2 points a pop for 3 half tracks.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's a problem that was in mid-war as well, but it's kind of popping up in late war. Is unfortunately it is the way this game plays. It seems like it's how many models can I get on the table right now, and it seems like it's kind of creeping in now to late war a little bit. I mean, it always kind of was there, right? Because you could take $1.5 million Daimlers, but at least they, I don't know, for some reason. So now, how many scout car companies for the British are you going to see? How many German monstrosities with Hitler Youth or Volkstrom? But
I'm kind
you know,
of curious to see what comes up, because obviously Warfare this year is late war, and it's going to be the Berlin books. It's going to be, obviously, unfortunately, I had to pull out now. I got to go do a work thing, but I was sort of work up my comic list, but try and get quite a few templates in, because I figured, like you say, there'd be a lot of the old Hitler Jürgen, the sort of the Volksturm list there. So my comments have to be a punch through some infantry, which obviously some Averies and Sextons would have helped with. But
yeah, that's a great point too. I mean, with the Hitler Youth, you've got 7 Faust stands, but even Volkstrom, you've got, limit 2. All the Berlin stuff, limit 2. The Soviet stuff now and Berlin, limit 2. Like, the age of assaulting that is kind of over, I think, with vehicles.
oh, absolutely,
like, like you can't. Are you going to see anybody run a Sherman company now? So especially since you can't third armor with Patton, but like medium tanks. Oh, how do you deal with that? Because that's a lot of Fausts and cheap Fausts. So I don't know. That's what I've been racking my brain for, is what is the solution other than just joining the dark side and playing more Germans.
It's kind of weird, because we used to feel like, certainly in the first 2 books, the Germans had a harder time of it, apart from the Greyhound. But yeah, it does feel like certainly Berlin has swung it very much to the dark side, as it were.
Well, yeah, I mean, you could start a whole other conversation about, like, what is the magic AT number? What is the magic armor number? But again, with Berlin and all these other books, like, when you can get 88s or 88 caliber weapons on either cheap Panthers or just the 88s themselves, or on a train, it's like, oh geez, is there even an armor value that matters anymore? Well, maybe if they're only taking drillings, but other than that, like, the Germans are pretty good, like, threat at all armor values. So that's the scary part.
Yeah,
Definitely.
well, since we're talking a little more crunch right now, a thing I definitely wanted to get you on, so we could talk about is, how do you go through, picking an army? What if you're like, okay, what books are you picking? Because especially in late war, you've got 3 or 4 different German books, a pair of Americans, a pair of everybody else. What's the equipment you're looking for specifically? That kind of thing.
Yeah, it's that's a great question. I think you always got to keep, before you even look at the books, you kind of have to look at how you're planning to approach your games, right? You just don't want to pick units willy-nilly out of a hat if they don't synergize with your plan, or what your plan hopefully will be. Obviously, you have to adapt it to every game, but so things like, for me, I'm not a big artillery guy. So I look for really cheap smoke or really cheap artillery. So stuff like the American Armored Mortar is incredible, right?
I mean, that's also include anytime you do the American
Right.
Army, that thing goes straight in. It's just
Right. And that would be kind of like my limit. Like, for me, I'm not a big priest. I see the value of priests. They're great. It just doesn't suit my play style of wanting to be in somebody's face very quickly. But like, so I look for those cheap sort of like artillery systems, so I can check that box and say, cool, I've got all my smoke missions, and it only cost me 8 points, or whatever my total value is. I'm not looking for like 30 points of really good artillery, because it's like, okay, how do you advance with 30 points of artillery? You don't.
no.
Again, then unfortunately, like I kind of hinted at, the game right now does seem to be, how many models can you get on the table? So if it's kind of a tank army, you start to look for low cost units but with decent guns. And that's why the Stummel is so attractive, or the Pack 40 recon thing out of Berlin, right? I mean, that Pack 40 recon unit, 3 points, it gets you whatever that 234 with a Pack 40 gun on it. Sure, it'll run away, but man, until it does, it's laser beaming a lot of units on the table.
It's surprisingly effective.
And and I really do think armor is, or your to hit value is going to be your new armor right now, right? So cheap hit on 4 stuff, or insanely cheap hit on 3 stuff, but mostly that. And then other than that, it's really just infantry. I think infantry are going to be needed on a lot of these lists, like because you're going to see people that are going to take a couple of King Tigers for the reserve, and killing a King Tiger is annoying as crap. It's gonna. I mean, sure, maybe you can get some M10s to the side, or whatever vehicle you want that has decent AT, but probably easier just to assault it off the objective over a couple turn. Try to get on the objective. So you need some good assault infantry. But yeah, that's kind of what I look for. It's unfortunately looking for the gimmicks, right? We've all seen it, like the M10C out of D-Day British, insane, right? I mean, because you compare it to its peers, and it's like, wait, why is this 18 points again? It's only 2 points more than an 1812 American one. What? Yeah. Come on. And then so you kind of compare it to the, to the way to all these other to its peers, and it's like, geez, that's an incredible unit. And then it checks your box for high AT. So that's why everybody's running at least.
And you can have 2 units of it for some weird reason I never quite worked out.
And then stuff like you mentioned, like I think for Britain, like the AVRE probably will make a comeback, because that could be a very, that's a literally brutal gun, and it's it's advancing it up.
You've got just enough for armor you can survive a Panzerfaust to the face. Obviously, you got to get close up to use that template.
Right. And if they're shooting a Panzerfaust at that means they're not shooting at other stuff, or they gave up their gun to ground. In the next, like there's a million. You hate to lose the AVRE, but 8 points for something that they should be really worried about is it's not a bad buy.
Definitely,
So looking for those little units and then kind of seeing how it integrates into your strategy is really all I do, and a lot of the guys out here do.
I'm wondering if Ram Kangaroo Infantry is going to be an interesting one, because like I say, with the Stummels being 8 tank 9, being that Ram for armor 6, it's got enough armor, it's got a good chance deflecting those kind of shots. It's going to get an infantry platoon up close where it can jump at them and start clearing back those Panzerfaust armed loonies and old men, and really start pushing. So I think, I suppose I was getting to the point where I was dropping the comet based force, keeping the comets as a support unit, but going very much to infantry force with the Rams, the Wasps and that kind of thing. Give me some flamethrowers, and
I think you've got something there. That's a great idea, because look, if it dies, which maybe somebody does kill it, but cool, you still got an infantry save. You would have been just as vulnerable marching across the table. But now, if drillings really are going to be an issue, or let's even just say there's one drilling in both objectives backed up by an infantry platoon, if you don't bail or kill those drillings with your Stuarts or your Comets in your case, whatever model that you have to deal with it, just leave your infantry in their tracks, right? Like you have that safety net there, where if in the open they're just going to get, it's like 30 shots from that platoon.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, definitely.
It's insane. Or what I've heard a lot from your side of the pond is mental. It's mental.
It is indeed mental, yes.
So I do think that's a cool unit. Like that's a really neat mechanic, and I think advancing armor, mitigating all that low AT, or even the Stummel, like you said, having a chance versus a Stummel, you've kind of mitigated everything Stummel and below. If you're advancing with AVREs and Kangaroos and all that, and the other, that's a great idea. I like it a lot.
Sadly, I won't get to put a test this year. I have to wait for next tournament, but
yeah.
Mike, what's next on the
call? Well, I mean, so just little things like every time I feel like new books come out and this kind of thing, like I talk to Kevin, he's like, oh, this new army, when Minor Axis Allies came out, he's like, Romanians are going to be a game changer, and I have no idea where he pulls this information from, but at least in North America, you saw so many Romanian infantry lists backed up by Soviet armor, because this is back when Soviet infantry was less than reliable. Obviously that's changed in the Berlin books, but as a guy I've seen play so many like vastly different armies, Kevin, which one's your favorite?
Well, my all-time favorite's probably the Japanese.
Sir, not appearing in this film. Got it.
Not appearing, yeah.
Next year, apparently.
They just
Allegedly.
had insane assault rules. They were incredible.
Mm.
And a night attack. And it was such a cool thematic list because you could just picture Japanese soldiers running forward with, bayonets glistening in the moonlight. And then I was very glad that, I was a fat nerd in an armchair, not in World War II, because I realized I would have been a friggin' pig on a spit rotating over a fire in like 30 seconds if I had to fight there. Favorite army for V4. It's tough. I've had a lot of good memories with the Romanians, Mike, as you mentioned. I think the Italians and mid-war are my favorite. That's how. Yeah,
it's a very strong list, even ignoring the L6s, and it's just like having all those tanks be effectively fearless. You bail them out, they get back in. It's just always in your face. It's just I've faced Mike's Italians a few times. It's a very tough fight.
They're tough. They're tough buggers, man. And like you said, the remount too on a lot of that stuff. The M14 with 6 MGs each is it's crazy. They serve a lot of unique purposes. Like you said, the L6 was an amazing icing on the top that made it kind of dumb for competitive play at its old points level. But even still, I think they're a great unit or great army. They're probably my favorite V4 army. I mean, that's how I got on the ETC team. So they're probably my favorite. Late war, it's like whatever, who cares? Next man up. But yeah.
All right. So moving towards the end of the episode here, there's a couple of things I wanted to talk about specifically, like some of the special US things that we do around here. What kind of separates out the US tournament scene, because obviously trying to hold, like you mentioned before, we run 4 nationals because the United States is a continent basically. But obviously, knowing so many people from across the country and seeing some of the wackier tournaments that we run in the United States, I was hoping we could get Kevin's take on that.
Yeah. So I will say that it feels like the size of the American tournament scene is probably the equivalent of all of Europe, and each state is probably the equivalent of a country, right? California, we've probably got 30 guys that play competitively across the state. It's a massive state, but I don't know how many are in the UK, but it's probably 50 guys, 60 guys, 100 guys. I don't know.
It's like say we took a hit with the V4 transition, but you probably got 40 people that come to various different tournaments over the entire UK.
Yeah, and then for like Nevada, there's probably like 6 guys that play, which might be a smaller, like Wales. I don't know how many guys are playing there. So you look at Europe, it's probably the same as the US, and travel distances are about the same. One of the things about, at least in the West Coast, is I don't know if you've heard, but LA has a little bit of a traffic problem.
I've encountered the LA traffic problem before. Yes.
Oh, congratulations! Next time you're out here, let me buy you lunch. We'll just plan to leave at 6 a.m. to get there on time. It is. I don't know if it's that, for the traffic reasons or what it is, but most people in Southern California and really across the West don't want to drive insano distances. In the Midwest, I'll hear about guys driving like 8 hours, 10 hours for a tournament. In Ohio, they'll drive to Pittsburgh. It's like, oh, these guys are driving all over the country. In California, it's like, oh, that store's 45 minutes away. I don't think I could do it.
I don't go to any tournaments in San Diego.
Mike is a great example of that. Extremely lazy. Yeah, that's what
I don't want to drive 3 hours to San Diego.
I mean, that's very much a UK mentality. Oh, it's a tournament to a city across. It's about a 45-minute train journey. That's too far.
Hey, you guys are our cousins across the pond. Then California and the UK. Who would have thought? We're Flames of War identical.
Yeah.
So we in LA, we kind of have to do fun events to try to get people's interest, and in California in general. So like Russ up in NorCal, he is, I believe, the events manager for the USS Hornet. And so he throws tournaments on the Hornet in the inside deck.
Yes.
It's
I'm
incredible.
so jealous when I saw that. I was just
it's insane. And for like $7, he let people sleep on the Hornet in like the officers' bunks or whatever.
Oh, wow.
So, like he's got that event. It's really cool. He does a terrific job, and I wish he would do it more because it's like that's a great event. And then SoCal, we don't have the Hornet. We don't have anything interesting other than like, Randy's Donuts. So what we did is there's a local convention at the Hilton near LAX.
Mhm.
And my buddy Justin Rodriguez and I were there, and we were playing late. We are getting a little loopy. It's like 3 a.m. I'm like, God, geez, I got to get out of here. And I'm like, when does this place even friggin' close? This is insane. He goes, Kevin, it's open all weekend from Friday to Monday. And I go, what we could do? We could run an event, just a 1-day tournament, not a big deal, nothing major. People could come out for 1 day from Saturday at 10 to Sunday at 10. And so that's kind of how an event we do called The Longest Day was born.
Right.
It's 8 rounds over 24 hours. And we give an award for the person that falls asleep first called the Rip Van Winkle.
Did not have one last year.
We didn't have one last
wow.
year. Mike.
I ran the tournament last year. Yeah.
Mhm.
So
I had my zebra shirt, as you would say, Lee, and I had yellow cards and red cards. I would wave around at people. I decided to leave the whistle at home because we were sharing a convention space with other people.
So yeah, we try to keep it light.
Mhm.
And then LVO is a great, if anybody that's listening internationally or nationally or even on Mars wants to come out to Vegas in January, it's the Western Coast Nationals. It's like a destination location. It's a lot of fun just because, you can game for 10 hours with a bunch of sweaty nerds in a well-conditioned, air-conditioned building, and then go to an all-you-can buffet. You could go shoot guns. You can go to an adult venue where there are poles, vertically hanging from the room. Whatever your fancy is, Vegas has it, and that's the point. And so, we do like a mixer on the first day, so everybody meets, and then on the second day we do, which is this is probably the most important reason to go to LVO. On Saturday, we go to a very nice buffet and we count up how many unique species of animals you can eat. And that's called the Carnivore Challenge. And so you get a plaque, King Carnivore. John Cederberg from ETC has won it 2 years in a row, so he's set the bar very high. I think he ate 29 unique species.
Jesus.
Right. So, we're counting different, so just for the viewer's sake, so like crab isn't crab. We have king crab, we've got blue crab, we've got, Dungeness crab. So that would be 3. So a lot of fish, right? Fish is kind of how you make the tally up. They do have chicken, they have duck, quail, stuff like that.
Mhm.
Maybe we'll mix it up. Maybe we'll do amount of unique desserts. Maybe there's some people with sweet tooth that can beat that.
I think with how much diabetes runs in the community, that's a bad idea.
That's, I'll be honest. Like, maybe I should actually spend a little bit more time planning the Flames of War event and the Team Yankee event. But
I like your priorities. That's definitely where it should lay.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I must admit, I have pondered a few times about doing LVO. I had Alex off the blog try and talk me into doing it a while ago. The wife loves LA, Las Vegas, and so she, I'll be one of those things I can bring her across, and she can do it, meet up in the evenings, kind of thing. Yeah, it's just trying. It's still quite a bit pricey getting out to Las Vegas, but I'm going to put some money aside at some point and do it. I think.
Definitely would love to have you.
Expense. Write it off on the podcast. Taxes.
Yeah, there's not much of my business around Las Vegas apart from Nellis, but so it doesn't quite work. But LA works a bit better, but yes.
Well, if you fly into LA, you could carpool out with any one of us. We all drive out there, right? It's only like 3.5 to 4 hour drive, and we got to drive the train out. So
all right,
we're all driving. So if you want to carpool from LA and back, you and your wife, you're more than welcome.
Well, I might sway it. So I'll have to ponder it a bit more. But the USS Hornet one, the USS Hornet one always appeals to me. It's
it's a great event. So there's a lot of cool events that we have to do to like pique interest, I think, out here, and also just to keep it fresh. I mean, there's events all over any weekend. There's an event over this country ran by there's a lot of great guys in the Midwest that are running events all the time in the South, on the East Coast, on the West Coast. So you got to do something to make it unique and make it more than just another Saturday playing another Flames of War game, which is don't get me wrong, that's what we're all there to do anyway. But I guess we should talk about models at some point, models and units, but whatever.
So after seeing the Hornet thing, let's go. This is a quick aside. Myself and Mike Everest. I was joking. I'm never quite sure if Mike's joking or how serious he's being on it, but
You
we
can
said
never
about
tell.
doing the same sort of thing with HMS Warrior. Because
Ooh,
HMS Warrior, they had the gun deck, and they had to. He got married there, so the sort of evening reception was on the gun deck. All the tables laid out where everyone sat, and you could easily get some gaming tables on those tables, probably. But I think the head height would just be my main concern. People knocking themselves out because it's quite a low head count for those sort of 18th century warships. So
is there a risk of wind or like,
it is a floating thing. It might get a bit of rock. It is moored in a fairly sheltered harbour, but yeah,
but it wouldn't knock the table around like the
I don't think
models
so.
out there?
It'd be so interesting, the dynamic, wouldn't it? I lost
Yeah.
my game because my opponent's shot model shifted and like basically got a free blitz move into my deployment zone.
That would be pretty cool, man. I would be interested in something like that, right? It's those unique things, man, that make gaming fun.
I have to look into it again. Yeah. Okay, Mike. I think we're ticking off all the questions here. We got our last question, our last universal question to round this out.
Well, of course, Kevin. So we ask this of all our guests. So if you get the magic wand and you wave it, and Battlefront has to include anything that you wanted, any one unit, maybe even a whole faction, what would you make them put into the game, besides V4 Japanese?
Wow, I should have listened to some of your other podcasts to the end because I wasn't ready for this one at all. Sorry, guys. Unit in the game early. I would like to see the early war, or just the early war finish with the ski troops. That'd be fun. I'd like to see those again. Those sort of unique rules are neat. I also ordered like 100 of those freaking models.
Look, guys, the skis. Those are
little
great
guys in
models.
skis.
Oh
Yeah.
God.
I special ordered them, and I'm like, okay, how many? I'm like, and then I realized I'm never gonna paint these, and they're just gathering dust. But if they brought them back, there we go. So that's why. I got a question for you guys. What is your most ridiculous closet of shame item? Either one of you can start.
I'm gonna let Lee go
Man.
first because I need to think.
So that's either going to be the entire army of Kradshirts and mounted German infantry for Blitzkrieg, not Blitzkrieg, Burning Empires and Hellfire and back. I bought enough motorbikes, but I do like 3 platoons of infantry, all mounted on motorbikes, and never did anything with them. I think I saw one of the boxes off. I have 2 of the boxes left over. They're probably worth a bit now. I should probably do something with it, but it's one of those armies.
Yeah.
That and the LRDG, which is one of the boxes I look at and think I should do something with this back on the shelf. So who knows? Maybe they'll come back at some point and I will finally do the LRDG that I've had since version 1 Flames of War.
Wow.
I'm just looking around the room at my various piles of shame.
Other than your 40K pile of shame, which we all know is the most greatest pile of shame.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at my Star Wars Legion pile of shame. I'm looking at my Napoleonics pile of shame. I'm looking at my Flames of War, my Team Yankee, my Nom piles of shame. There's so much painting backlog, but I think like the most embarrassing one is probably my 28 mil Napoleonics for sharp practice, because I went and I painted half of it. I painted like all I've got a King's German Legion army, if you will. I've got my riflemen painted. I've got my officers. I've got, I painted all the fun stuff. And it's like, okay, now to paint 80 line infantry. And I'm like, no, just no, I cannot.
They looked good too. You did a nice job on it.
My riflemen do look pretty good. I am proud of those, but I need to finish that army. I really do.
For the first 2 years of knowing Mike, I thought his painting style was shiny plastic, and then I realized that was just the sprue.
My as someone who plays a variety of games, my painting backlog has always been dramatically fucked. I have some wonderful Flames of War Americans, but I paid a guy in our club to paint them, and they're beautiful. I love them.
Fantastic.
Uh,
Well,
well,
anything else?
I think that's just about it.
Oh,
Kevin,
excellent.
thank you so much for coming on the show.
Guys, that was an absolute pleasure. I
Mhm.
would have never thought that me getting to just talk at you for an hour would have been so much fun. But anytime you need people to just, talk without ever taking a breath, I'm here and available in Los Angeles. So it was an
no
absolute
doubt,
pleasure. Thank you, gentlemen.
no doubt we'll have you back on again in the future. It has been a blast talking through this and ETC, that kind of thing. And hopefully you can talk about some of the American tournaments coming up after some of those coming through. But yeah, it's been really great to talk to you and meet you virtually. It's always a pleasure. Thanks to the wonders of the internet technology, we can now see each other when we talk. This transatlantic phone call business we have, like we're going full Jetsons with the video calls. So yeah, it's been great talking to you, and thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
So as always, people, if you enjoy listening to us, then please like and subscribe, and obviously join us for more nonsense in the near future. And hopefully I'll work out how this camera keeps switching off. It's getting really annoying now. Once every second, it's a bit too much for me to start tolerating it. But yeah, so yes, join us in the future. There'll be some more Shoot and Scoot and Eyes and Ears and Time of Day. I mean, Mike, we can now with the upcoming NATO book, we can finally do our Team Yankee starter thing,
Yes, they keep every time we're like Lee and I sit down, we're like, we're gonna do the Team Yankee starter. They're like, we've announced a new Team Yankee starter. And we're like, we have to wait. We have to wait. We have to be as complete as possible.
I was expecting the books to be back to back in literally a space of a couple of months. That caught me off guard. So it's definitely all right. Well, it works for us. At least we can get it done next. It's
yeah, so hopefully we get that done right as soon as the NATO book drops. We can finally get our last tier list, because I know people were very excited to see the Team Yankee ones.
I saw someone actually reference our video the other day on Reddit. Someone was asking about what the best starter to get, and they put the video up. Me, not me. I was just sitting there, just going, "Oh wow!" Someone's actually referenced it.
I saw that same post, and I just didn't have time to shit post it, but otherwise I would have.
Oh, thank God!
No, it was really impressive, guys. Those videos, you did a good job.
Thanks very much.
I know a lot of new guys in LA do look at those, mainly because Michael
I
runs
caught a lot
around
of flack
showing
in our
them.
local group for naming the bottom tier British starter sets. Ironically, I get more flack from Americans than I get from the British.
Whereas I'm just nodding because yes, they're all appalling. Apart from the one that's actually really good, if you don't use it in the way it's intended.
It's a wonderful Death or Glory box. We've relabeled that box. It's the perfect British starter set.
Yes. So hopefully, Kevin, like I say, we'll talk to you at the very least after next TTC. I presume you're going to be going to the next one?
Hopefully.
Yes, great. Okay, so we'll hopefully catch up after that if we don't find a reason beforehand.
Sounds great.
Yes, and we're working on some other fun things for the show. Always remember to like, share, and subscribe. Do the YouTube things. Annihilate the like button, I think is the term people use now. I'm behind on my Zoomer. Please
Just
forgive
absolutely
me.
smash it.
But please remember, watch every episode of Time of Day. Watch every episode of Time of Day. Bye.
Bye.
You gotta find something. Yeah, you're gonna put a hypnotoad every time it blacks out. Just switch it over to the hypnotoad.
That's probably too much work considering how often this camera dies out.
That's bizarre.
Yeah, next time I'm going to try and plug it into the actual USB 3 in the back. It might just be because I'm USB 2 at the front. It's just not liking it. I was going to be asked to pull the PC out and start fiddling around with USB ports.
Every time I can hear you just die a little bit more inside.
Just a little bit. It's just. The annoying thing is, I bought this. So this is gonna be the outtake. Just me getting more and more frustrated at this camera.
It's not me for once.